Now, who were the men who unleashed violence on civilians at Bawalishi during the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election? This is one of many questions which remains unanswered. Now, the Minister of State in charge of national security over the weekend gave some details about this operation, which was undertaken by these masked men in Bawalishi. We'll bring that to you shortly, but before that, here is a news desk report which begs the question: have party boys infiltrated the National Security Council?
This is not a war movie. Those are gunshots and violent sounds from La Bawalishi in the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency during the just-ended by-election. Some new videos have resurfaced showing a group of marched and well-built men unleashing raw violence on some young men. In the middle of the fray is a young man wearing a black t-shirt being kicked around in his ribs and every part of his body by about 15 to 20 well-built men. Well, Minister of State in charge of national security, Brian Champon, has now admitted the men are national security operatives who were tasked to locate and defuse what he calls undesirable things.
The information we have goes beyond the by-election that we just witnessed. It's a massive operation of movements of certain things that is undesirable to the public.
Okay.
And it's something that the operation or the information that we have, what we are tracking, has not ended.
He says the men will not stop unless these undesirable things are diffused.
As we speak now, our men are actively engaged in unraveling the thing that we suspect it is. So it has not ended. When it ends and we deem it fit to let apprise the public of that information, we will.
But in the middle of the chaos is the soundbite from the hooded, well-built national security operatives who assaulted Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, Sam George. Listen again. Translated as, the beginning of 2020, I swear to God. Could this mean that party boys have infiltrated the national security officers? Could this mean that the national security operatives have a task to execute in 2020? Until the police conclude investigations, there'll be more questions begging for answers.
Well, that appears not to be settling the matter. Security analyst Adams Bona, the UNDP, NCCE, CODEO, and many others have come heavily down on government and the Electoral Commission for its handling of last week's by-election. NCCE boss Josephine Nkrumah and Dr. Emmanuel Akwete of IDEG are two of such individuals, and they had this to say.
We have specific agencies. We see different clothes, black and khaki-like and police and so on. What are all this? But what I know is that when it's elections, the security command is the police. The police task force is led by the National Security Task Force is led by the IGP. You know, when you see the chief of staff of the army on the task force, he's invited by the police. In fact, the police would also tell you that it's the Electoral Commission that has command over everything elections. They are invited, they consult, they ask them what they need, and so on and so forth. So the role of national security other than the police, or which is not under the command of the police, raises questions. Where are they from? How do we identify them? Now, this whole thing about national security, even the FBI has badges, you know. In critical circumstances, they will show you their badge. Are they badged? Can we say when push comes to shove and you say, please identify yourself? Because sometimes people would comply once you've shown your identity, that this is why you are here. But to just say I'm national security, so it's raised a lot of concerns about our security, whether we have parallel security structures, whether this came under the command of the police, or whether it's the police in different clothing, and so on, or there are other forces. And that is why those who are demanding that this thing needs to be investigated speedily, thoroughly. I associate with the statement of occupy Ghana. Or there's a potential criminality involved. People have been shot. They've been wounded. For what? In a public space, around, and so on. The police have to do their work thoroughly. I think the police must be strengthened to do their work, this investigation thoroughly, speedily. If they need help, others should be brought in. But I think the damage it has done, because it's gone, look, for the UNDP to issue a statement would tell you that it's global.
There was actionable intelligence. I think by this point it's fair to say it was a really botched job. There's enough evidence to suggest that people who were meant to protect us became an intimidating actor. They became people who began to assault others, including an MP. And nothing at all warrants that kind of approach. It has put fear in the people of Ghana, and we are beginning to understand the essence of our consistent statement that we have to take a position to stamp out the political thugs that our democracy is being associated with now. For the UNDP to come out with a statement, it is a loaded and very significant turn of events that nobody should underestimate.
For by law, the national security is not supposed to be having an armory. So to see national security operatives with assault rifles, not sidearms, and dressed battle ready, facing civilians, for me, that is something that is a cause for worry. As I did ask in the questions, I want to know, do we now have a third force? All we saw was a group of people descending on civilians and they started shooting.
Honestly, those don't look too different from scenes from any action movie with all those gunshots raging in the background. So we've been asking ourselves, what exactly are these weapons that they allege were used on the day? Well, from our security desk, Emefa Apau is here to help us understand the details. Emefa, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Kujo.
Right, you've been looking into some weaponry, right?
Okay, so I'm a weapons expert today, just
nice.
for today.
Just for the day.
But we can't independently verify that these two weapons that I'm going to talk about are the ones that actually were used on that day at Ayawaso, West Wuogon. But we'll talk about the AK-47 and then the M16, which is in the AR-15 family. So I'll start with the AK-47. I'm sure it's a very popular one that we all know about. It's an assault rifle too. Both of them are assault rifles. And AK-47, I'm sure you're wondering what AK-47 is. It's named after the person that made it, the person that invented it. He's a Russian. So AK-47 has a Russian descent. It's called Mikhail Kalashnikov. So the name is derived from his name. It says automatic Kalashnikov.
Right.
And it was made in 1947. That's how come it's called AK-47. Okay, so AK-47 has some interesting facts about it. It's a very deadly weapon. Every gun can kill, but AK-47 can just kill you in minutes. In fact, it's serious such that when you line 100 persons, AK-47 can go through all of them and kill them.
You can shoot one bullet through all of them.
You can shoot one bullet through all of them and they'll all die. And then also, you know what we call the hollow block? It's a cinder block, they call it, but we call it hollow block here. It can actually split it open. And when you put a cylinder, an LPG gas, it can actually penetrate it.
Wow.
That's how deadly an AK-47 is. And then also you can shoot it within 10 seconds. You can shoot about 10 or so bullets within 10 seconds. That's how serious an AK-47 is. And you can even train children to use it. It's very easy to use. And when we went to that Chiansi Warfare Jungle, you didn't have the opportunity to come, or you didn't come with us.
I wasn't there.
Yes,
no.
you didn't come with us.
No.
But we were taught that AK-47 is so easy to use. I emerged the best shooter, by the way. Because
nice.
that's how easy it is to be able to use an AK-47. So these are some of the facts about AK-47. So 10 rounds per second, like I was telling you. And it works in any climate. And it is very cheap. Between $10 to $200, you can get an AK-47. That's the AK-47. And it's done a number of wars. It's been used in the Cold War and many other wars. That's the AK-47, and like I said, its place of origin is from Russia.
Right.
So we'll then move on quickly to the M16, which I said is in the AR-15 family. So it's also an assault rifle, and it has its origin from the USA. That's the United States of America. It's one weapon that emerged that it's been used in a lot of mass shootings. That's the AR-15, M16. It's been used in a lot of mass shootings in America. So most of the mass shootings that we hear about, it's mostly an M16 that was used. And it's been used in the Vietnam War, the Cambodian War, Liberia, the Gulf War, the Burundi, Sierra Leone, and then Somalia. This is how far the M16 has traveled in terms of
people around the world have tasted the bitter end of these two weapons, particularly M16. There are a lot of African incursions.
Exactly, just like the AK-47 as well. And I must add that the AK-47, its bullet, it has a red tip. Unfortunately, I don't have a casing of it. I would have brought it to show you how it looks like. So it's just like a pencil like this, and it has a tip, a red tip, and it is poisonous. If you are shot and you don't die, what happens is that the poison at the tip of it that stays in your body will kill you.
Wow.
So that's how deadly an AK-47 is. Like I said, every weapon can kill. But AK-47, MRs, M16, these are very deadly weapons. So if that's in case, that's what was used at the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election just on Thursday, what we saw, the shootings and all, then that is what we are dealing with in terms of the weapons that was used. It would explain why somebody with a leg wound would be considered in critical condition and still taken to 37. For treatment. But thank you so much. That was deadly but educational from our security desk, MFR. Thank you so much for that. Boy. So, at least we've learned something. Why don't we very quickly remind ourselves of what happened this morning? The former President John Rawlings joined the NDC Council of Elders to discuss this incident. Maxwell Agbagba is at the party headquarters. He joins us now with an update. Maxwell, can you hear me? We're working on connecting with Maxwell Agbagba there. Now, he's actually been following the former President John Rawlings for quite a while. They went on a visit to the hospital to see those who were injured during the scuffle and the shooting on the day of the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency by-election. Also, they went on to the party headquarters for a meeting with the Council of Elders. We believe that the former president is there and will be discussing this among other issues. Now, he has already said something on the matter, which I can share with you. He says that those who are bent on using violence to achieve their aims must be prepared to answer for their actions. Now, the former president noted that very little attempt was being made to prevent violence by agents of the leading political forces within the country.
Speaking after a visit to the 37 military hospital today to visit Yaro Ishawu, a victim of the Bawaleshi shooting incident last Thursday, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings said, and I quote, "By our actions and omissions, especially after 2008, we contributed immensely to laying the bed we now find ourselves in. We are not doing enough to contain and prevent the use of violence from without, but also from within our own." Now, Yaro Ishawu was hit by a bullet when armed men believed to be national security operatives stormed the residence of the NDC aspirant for Ayawaso, West Wuogon by-election while the election was underway. 6 people were injured and sent to the Legon hospital, but Ishawu, who suffered a broken leg, was subsequently referred to the 37 military hospital. Now, the former president noted that he had earlier visited the Medifem hospital at Westlands to check on one Edem Tekli, who was the victim of, and I quote, "our own internal violent machinery against the colleague of an aspiring parliamentarian." Quote, close. Flight Lieutenant Rawlings said the aspirant had used most of his savings to provide water for some of the villages in his constituency, but ended up receiving a telephone call from an executive in his constituency warning him to keep off such activities and to slow down. The former president said he could not comprehend how an aspirant could not engage in activities that will endear him to the people, like the provision of very basic water. Edem Tekli was attacked at Ho at dawn on Thursday by unknown assailants who first slapped, hit him, and then stabbed him thrice. He was initially treated at a hospital in Ho before he later traveled to Accra for review. And that is what we have on the former president's communications this morning and afternoon. Now, on social media, we've been running a poll. Here's what some of you had to say. The question that we asked was, do you feel alarmed by the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election violence with election 2020 in mind? Here are some of your thoughts on that question. Yeah, we will bring you your thoughts on that question very shortly. But here in the studio, of course, it's The Pulse. We're coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlemle, and today our big story is all about the shooting at Ayawaso West Wuogon, where several people are believed to have incurred some wounds from gunshots. Now, we've learned all about the weapons that were used to deliver these wounds, and we are seeking your views on how you have been affected by this event and whether or not it has put you in a state of fear. Here are some of your views on that. Prince Kobe says, 2020, hey, I will stay in the house instead. Samuel Ayamga says, not only alarmed, but wondering who is now in control of the state. Seidu Kumbil says, I'm not bothered at all because I won't be voting. It is pointless. The violence, however, does prove that this government would do anything to maintain power, including causing chaos, fear, and panic. Charles Abu says, more than alarmed. If things like this can happen in just one constituency by election, then in general elections, what will happen? Emmanuel Joe Addison has been sharing his views as well. He says, yes, so it seems like we don't have a president in the country to condemn those barbaric actions. Adnan Alahassan Jambedu says, in all honesty, every reasonable Ghanaian should be alarmed and concerned about what happened in Ayawaso West. If this were Boko, your guess would be as good as mine. Right, so many more of your views. Fatahiatu Halidu Imoro says, yes. Clerk Bafo says, just sad. Baba Al-Hassan says, no, please. Ernest Omabo says, yes. Diamond Frederick also says, yes. And your views keep coming through. Yao Heritage says, yes, very shaky.